Cannex, through its wholly owned subsidiaries, provides a wide range of services, including real estate, management, financial, branding, and IP, to licensed cannabis business operators, domestically and internationally. Here to tell you more is Anthony Dutton, Chief Executive Officer.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Dutton. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Cannex Capital Group. Thank you for showing up today for our corporate presentation. Before I get started, I'm going to have to go through a couple of disclaimers, some forward-looking statements. I'm sure everybody has seen these before, but they are legally required. So feel free to go through them at your leisure. If you have any questions, you can always give me a call. So the whole idea behind Cannex Capital was to build a strong portfolio of operating cannabis assets. We've seen a lot of companies out there assembling varieties of opportunities in the cannabis sector, from licenses to partially built buildings to buildings that aren't quite yet built. What we're focusing on is actually acquiring and consolidating strong and profitable operating companies and looking for synergies between those two companies or between those portfolios of companies, and looking for companies that are currently generating immediate cash flow. So if you look at the business overview of Cannex, we have what we call real value proposition. We have existing revenues with EBITDA. We have strong existing brands. We also have a whole host of very strong existing opportunities that are in our pipeline. So we're looking to take some of these opportunities that we have identified and execute on by bringing them together underneath the Cannex portfolio, or the Cannex group of companies, if you will. I don't think anybody is under any illusion about the market opportunity. It is significant. If you look at the North American opportunity itself, it's in excess of $50 billion. One of the beautiful things about the cannabis industry is that we don't have to go out there and prove that there's a market or prove that people actually want this product. We know they've been consuming this product for decades, if not centuries. So it's really a once-in-a-lifetime unique opportunity where you've got this large existing market that's moving from what we call the gray, unlicensed market into what we are operating in, which is the licensed and legal market. So our corporate strategy is to really leverage what we have in Washington State, which is the largest cultivator processor in the state. It dominates the state both in terms of numbers of employees, revenues, brands. It really is the most significant asset in the state of Washington. We've also made public disclosure about an acquisition that we hope to close on very soon of a company in California called Jetty Extracts. And this really is just the beginning for us. Our whole thesis is to go out and acquire more and more existing operating companies and bring them together under the Cannex umbrella and find synergies between all of these operating entities. And lastly, the thing that we have is a very strong both management team and board. Our board have a lot of experience in the cannabis sector, and more importantly, our operating team are really amongst the best operators in North America in the cannabis sector. So overall, the value proposition of Cannex is terrifically strong. Again, if you look at our focus, again, it's about looking to develop a high-value portfolio of diversified operations. We also provide a wide range of services to the cannabis sector. What we mean by that primarily is access to capital, specifically in the U.S. One of the challenges for companies in the United States to grow is to find access to capital. And because of the fact that it's still federally illegal as a Schedule I drug, to access traditional capital sources, like commercial banks, for example, this is much more challenging than for a company like Cannex, which is a Canadian public company and can raise the money through the Canadian public markets to then allocate down to U.S. opportunities by way of real estate, by way of management services, by way of providing working capital and strengthening a balance sheet. There's a whole range of things that we can do. But again, our core focus goes always back to strong operating companies focused on brands, distribution, and retail. So the Cannex advantage, again, we kind of covered this off in previous slides, but it really is worth stating over and over again. We are seasoned operators, we have an expert capital markets team, and we have probably one of the strongest foundation assets in the cannabis market today, and that is that we own the assets of the largest cannabis cultivator processor in Washington State. So again, if you go back to our team, if you look on the left side of the page there, you've got the two operating partners. Leo Gontmacher and Jerry Deriviani, both of whom are also directors of the company. But Leo was the founder of Northwest Cannabis Solutions, which is, again, the largest cultivator processor in Washington State, and we own the assets of that company. Jerry Deriviani was employee number one there. He was also their corporate counsel. He's a lawyer with legal training, obviously, but who also worked for a large commercial litigation firm in New York. On the right side of the slide, you've got myself and Barry, who have between us over 50 years of capital markets experience. So our strength is accessing capital, speaking to investors, structuring deals, and really providing the capital that people like Leo and Jerry will need to grow the operating platform of the company. So the first phase of Cannex's life was our going public transaction and the capital raise. We went public on the 14th of March of this year, so we've only been a public company for less than 4 months. We also raised $48.2 million, which at the time was the largest capital raise for a Canadian public company with a U.S. focus. A year or so ago, the U.S. was pretty much off the radar screen for most investors. In the last 6 months, it's really come on strong, and we were really one of the first companies to identify the opportunities in the United States. Since then, there have been some larger capital raises, but we still are at the very top of the range, and looking forward to build on that foundation. As a part of that going public transaction, we also acquired, as I said, we call it our flagship asset, which is the assets of the largest operator in Washington State. We did this by way of a holding company where we acquired a company called Brightleaf. And Brightleaf is a Washington State holding company that owns all of the assets of Northwest Cannabis Solutions, which is the operating company. So when I say owning the assets, what I mean is we own the real estate, we own the brands, we own the IP, we own everything that the operating company needs to operate. Again, going back to Northwest Cannabis Solutions, which really is the economic engine of Cannex, it is the largest cultivator in the state and processor. It produced in 2017 8,000 kilograms of dried flower. This year's estimated production is 16,000 kilograms. Our 2017 sales were approximately 25 million, actually just over 25 million US dollars. And again, it's one of the largest employers in the state. It generates some of the largest tax revenues in the state. And we have shelf space at about 75% of the licensed dispensaries in Washington State, with the top 7 edibles brands and the 2 top flower brands. So we're a very, very well-known operator in the state of Washington. Important to note in Washington that you cannot be vertically integrated. So unfortunately, we do not own any retail outlets. We would love to, but the licensing in Washington is such that you're unable to. So just again, looking at our assets, we own 2 cultivation facilities, one in a place called Tumwater, which is about 45 minutes directly south of Washington, and the other in a place called Elma, which is about 45 minutes southwest of Seattle. They both have 30,000 square feet of flowering canopy, significant infrastructure, including lighting and amperage coming into the building. So we're very well equipped on the cultivation side. On the cultivation and processing side, we also have a very significant footprint there as well, 40,000 square feet of processing space. We have 3 kitchens, all approved by the Department of Health and the Department of Agriculture. We're one of the largest processors and extractors of oils in the whole state of Washington. So again, by many criteria, by all criteria, we are probably the largest operator in the state. These are just a few pictures of some of our brands. We really firmly believe that the industry is moving towards what we call consumer branded goods of the cannabis product, whether it be cannabis flower or what we call derivative products. And derivative products include everything from edibles to concentrates to sublinguals to anything made with the cannabis oil, the extracted cannabis oil. We like the derivatives product a lot because they have higher margins. It's much easier to build a brand around it. And the key to really dominating this sector of the market is to be able to deliver what we call a consistent branded experience. If you look at those marmas in the top left-hand corner there, the colorful jelly squares, if those don't taste the same every time the consumer uses them or eats them, then you're going to have a very difficult time establishing a strong brand. So again, some just performance metrics of what Brightleaf has done in the state. The thing that we're most proud of is our yields, which are really off the charts compared to other operators that we've been able to gather data from. We're over 500 grams a square foot, which is very, very, very important and very significant in the cannabis cultivation world. So phase two is, again, the expansion. We're taking the foundation asset that we acquired in phase one, and we're going to build from here. So if you look at this graphic, you'll see that obviously we've acquired the Washington State asset already. We're now moving into California by way of our acquisition of Jetty Extracts. We would like to be in 2 more states by the end of calendar 2018. And really, again, this is just an opportunity for us to take the Cannex operating excellence and leverage that into other key jurisdictions. So the Jetty Extracts one is probably worth exploring just a little bit, as we're very excited about this. Jetty does currently not have any cultivation, and we'll probably keep it that way. We think cultivation is really going to turn into what we call more of a commodity type product, a race to the bottom in many ways. The example that I always give is that nobody knows or nobody even cares where the tomatoes come from that go into Heinz ketchup, but everybody knows the brand of Heinz ketchup. So Jetty Extracts purchases cannabis trim or cannabis flower from any number of sources in the state of California and then turns it into processed extracted product, which is then sold under the Jetty brand. They have a distribution license, so they can self-distribute it, which is very, very important. And then they sell to dispensaries. They sell through a variety of online platforms, the biggest of which is called Ease. They also sell by way of white labeling through a company called PAX, which has one of the best hardware packages in the cannabis vaporizer market. And they have the top 5 PAX SKUs. So they're a very dominant player in the state of California. But at the same time, it's important to know that the state of California is still very, very fragmented. Nobody really has more 3 to 4% of the market. So the opportunity for Cannex is to provide working capital, growth capital to Jetty so they become a dominant brand in the state of California and ultimately nationally, coast to coast. So this slide here just gives an overview sampling of some of the Jetty products that we currently sell through Jetty in California. The plan will be to expand the product portfolio by both developing products in-house at Jetty, but also licensing in some of the products that we already make in Washington State. This is the big opportunity with companies like Cannex, is to what we call cross-license. We can take some of the Jetty brands, take them into Washington State. We can take some of the Washington State brands, bring them into California, and ultimately, as we move into additional jurisdictions, by that I mean states in the U.S., we can obviously bring those brands into whatever state we move into next. So California. This is obviously an extremely exciting market for a whole host of reasons. First of all, it's enormous. It is bigger than the Canadian market altogether, and it's important to remember that I think the number is something like $40 billion of wealth has been created in the Canadian market. So just imagine how much wealth is going to be created in the California cannabis market. So for that reason, it's strategically very important. Number 2, California is iconic. Hollywood, Los Angeles, the Golden Gate Bridge, all of these things that we think about when we think about California. We believe, and the industry believes, that some of the global brands that will ultimately dominate in the next 5 or 10 years, just like Coca-Cola dominates in its market, we believe that brands that have their DNA, if you will, or brands that are born in California are going to be that much more important on the global cannabis stage. So for that reason, we really wanted to make a big push into California early. We wanted to have a strong asset that we could build around, and I think that with Jetty, we really found that. So again, talking more about the opportunity for Cannex, we really only just started. We've got Washington, we've got California. As everybody knows, there's 9 states that are now recreational legal. There's 27 states which are medically legal. There's a number of countries. It seems to be a new country every week is coming online. So we're very excited about taking the Cannex platform and moving it beyond the U.S. into Canada, into Europe, as other companies are already doing. And again, I keep going back to the importance of brands, because ultimately it's going to be a brand that is going to dominate this industry. I think I've kind of touched on this already, just a graphic showing, the Canadian opportunity. Everybody knows that Canada was one of the first to market, and now everybody's looking south of the border into the U.S. opportunity. I'm not going to go over a lot of detail on this slide, but I think that the first line to the first bullet is something that everybody has to remember. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Never before has there been this kind of transition of existing economic activity from what we call the gray market into the legal market. Unlike virtually any other new consumer branded good, which had to go out there and prove that there was a demand for it. In the case of cannabis, everybody knows that demand already exists. So that is just a phenomenal opportunity for people who are good at operating. And I go back to this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity while cannabis is established and establishing itself as a consumer branded goods opportunity. I think that much of what's on this particular slide, many people know already, or anecdotally know already, but there's a growing body of evidence that while recreational cannabis is a lot of fun, medical cannabis is also very beneficial and can ail a lot of things, from anxiety to anti-inflammatory issues to epilepsy to problems with sleep disorders. So I'm a firm believer in the opportunity for cannabis both recreationally and medically. Every day it seems in the newspaper that we're seeing evidence of a new big player coming into the market. This is just an example of some of the ones that have come into the market in the last 5 or 6 years. On the financial institution side, there was a very large U.S. investment bank that committed to a $500 million raise about 10 days ago. Some of Canada's larger commercial banks, BMO, TD, Royal Bank, they're now getting involved in this sector. So again, as the sector becomes de-risked, more legitimized, and more mainstream, we're going to see more players getting involved, from the corporate side to the financial side to the health services side, and obviously from the government and regulatory side, Canada being the first. So one of the things that a lot of people don't think about when they think about cannabis is all the ancillary markets. There's obviously what we call the 3 foundation building blocks of the industry, which is cultivation, processing and manufacturing, and then retail and distribution. But there's so much more going on in this sector other than just those three things. And we're already seeing opportunities around labs and testing, online sales, cannabis tourism. The list goes on and on and on. That's not to say that Cannex is going to be involved in every one of these ancillary markets, but it's just very reassuring for us to see the market is being so widely accepted and widely adopted with all the development of these other opportunities, which I think bodes very, very well for the future of the industry as a whole. So this is the comparables page, and if you look at us compared to any of the companies on this page using a revenue metric or an EBITDA metric or historical or projected future production, I think that you'll right away see that we are significantly undervalued compared to most of our peers. And I personally think that Cannex represents a fantastic entry point for a new cannabis investor or for an existing cannabis investor as well. We really do show some terrific opportunity in terms of value with our growth prospects. I'm obviously biased, but I don't think you can go too far wrong with a holding in Cannex. We've touched on some of these people already, but we do, again, have a very, very strong team. My background is public capital markets. Leo is the operator who started off Northwest Cannabis Solutions and is now our Chief Operating Officer. Tom Peters, a very high-profile investment banker from San Francisco, who has spent his career primarily on mergers and acquisitions side of things. So he's extraordinarily helpful when it comes to providing guidance on our acquiring future opportunities. Jerry, as I've said, is our director, but also is a very early employee, actually employee number 1 at Northwest Cannabis Solutions. Greg Marshall is based in New Zealand, is a lawyer by training, and runs a fund called Logic Fund, and he is a very large investor in Cannex. Roman is chairman of the board, also the CEO, one of North America's largest specialized seafood companies. So very much understands branded product, shelf space, logistics, distribution, marketing. Many of those things, funnily enough, transfer from the seafood industry into the cannabis industry. And then Dimitri on the right is a New York-based accountant with a very strong background in U.S. Tax accounting, which is tremendously helpful for us. He's also the chair of our audit committee. We have an advisory board. These are basically people that we've dealt with over the numbers of years who just help us on a whole range of aspects, from sourcing capital, accessing capital, opening doors. Simon in particular has been extremely helpful with regards to modeling and doing financial due diligence. So from a capital markets perspective and from a holding company perspective, having people with this kind of skill set is critically important. Okay, on our capital structure, it's a very straightforward capital structure. We have 183 million shares outstanding. We have options and warrants. The warrants were issued as a part of our financing on the $48 million financing that we did, I mentioned earlier. Share price is in the low to mid 90s right now. The sector has softened up over the summer, plus it's just general summer malaise where not a lot of people are active in the markets. We're very optimistic about the fall, however. We think there's going to be a big buying coming into the market right across the sector, and we're well prepared for the end of the summer. So thank you very, very much. Again, my name is Anthony Dutton. I'm the CEO, director, and a co-founder of the company. If anybody would like to give me a call or send me an email, I'm always available to answer any questions. And again, thank you very much for your interest in Cannex.